Stars while raising money for charity. Go to
Communicizer. Just strap non-toxic Communicizer to your mouth and go from boring old man speak,
I'm here if you want to talk,
to 100% off the chain.
Text me whenever, yo.
It's that easy.
Thanks to Communicizer, I'm relevant to my kids again. I'm fly, boo.
And now when you buy Communicizer, you get the auto-tune attachment free. Sounds so hip-hop, your kids will want to talk to you for hours.
I used to have to walk 3 miles uphill to school every morning, Shorty.
I love you, Dad.
I love you too, son.
Communicizer is not available in stores because it doesn't exist. But that's okay. You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Because kids in foster care don't need perfection. They need you. For more information on how you can adopt, go to adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Adopt Us Kids and the Ad Council.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared. It's like tiny nails in the air poke my lungs. I start to cough. Sometimes my parents have to take me to the hospital.
Today, 1 out of 13 children suffer from some form of asthma, accounting for nearly 1/3 of all emergency room visits.
I feel like I'm choking. It's kind of like an elephant is on my chest. A little whistle sound comes out when I breathe.
But while your child may suffer from asthma doesn't have to make your child suffer. There are simple ways you can prevent your child's next attack. To learn more, call 1-866-NO-ATTACKS. That's 1-866-662-8822. Log on to www.noattacks.org or call your doctor. Because even one attack is one too many.
I feel like a fish with no water.
Brought to you by the EPA, the Ad Council, and this station.
Ferry residents, this is Tooth speaking. I'm sorry, did you say credit? Credit Ferry? Perhaps you have the wrong number. Actually, no, I'm not familiar with the Credit Ferry. And I know all the ferries. We're a tight-knit bunch. Why don't you tell me more about what the Credit Ferry does? Maybe it'll ring a bell. The Credit Ferry magically raises your credit score so you'll be more likely to receive better interest rates? I'm pretty sure there's not a Credit Ferry. But I do know you can improve your credit rating by paying bills on time and keeping your credit card balances low. Glad I could help. Me? Well, I leave money under children's pillows. Adults? No, kids only. But I do know a good dentist.
There's no magic to improving your credit, but there is help, and it's free. Go to creditferry.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the Consumer Bankers Foundation, the Leadership Conference on Civil Rights Education Fund, and the Ad Council.
Now, back to All Canes Radio. Tweet us at All Canes Radio and interact with us on Facebook. Now, here's your host, Brian the Beast London.
We're back here on All Canes Radio, live from the Shack, Shake Shack, 1450 South Dixie Highway. In the Gables, right across from the U, right across from All Canes. Burgers, fries, beer, shake, water, soda, tea. They got it all here at the Shack. They got bubbly, too. We witnessed that a few weeks ago. They got some great wine on ready for you and everything else. So come on down here to Shake Shack. We get the Heat game on, the 8 flat screen TVs. No better place to be in the Gables than Shake Shack. And we appreciate Lamar Thomas coming down. We'll have Nate Brooks coming up in a little bit. But now let's talk to a guy that knows everybody in town, because he cuts their hair. And if I had hair, he'd be cutting mine, but I have no hair. So we'll see if we can trim my beard or something. Steve Rivera, a.k.a. Canes Barber, at Canes Barber on Twitter. Been on the show before. Steve, what's up, man?
Que hola, que bolón, que hueta.
Yeah, what he said. I don't even, it doesn't even matter.
That means what's up.
What's up, man? So you started this 7 years ago.
7 years ago.
If I asked you back then that you'd be as popular as you are now, as busy as you are now, meeting the type of people that you are now, would you tell me I'm crazy?
Yeah, I really would call you crazy. Really, I would.
Well, you basically started with just a couple of guys, right? It was like Lance Leggett, it was like just a few people at the U.
Actually, this is a cool story. I actually could write a book about.
You should.
How I came to be the Canes Barber.
All right.
I actually used to be a correctional officer.
Right.
With the state. Coming out of high school, I graduated, went to Miami-Dade, got my AA in criminal justice. And when I was working down south at the state prison, I actually ran into someone who I didn't know would make a big impact in my life, and that was Javaris James.
Wow.
His brother was actually incarcerated, serving a lifetime sentence. And I met his brother, and one day he pulled me to the side. He knew I was a big Hurricane fan, so he was like, "Hey, you know who my brother is?" And I was like, "No, I have no idea." Pulled out a picture, Javaris James, and I was like, "Oh." He was like, "Yeah, he's coming down. He usually comes down to visit me on weekends. When he comes down, I'm gonna have you meet him." I was like, "Cool." I met him, kicked it, outside my work, hung out a couple times. I was young, 19. He was the same age. So we had fun. But one day it was like he couldn't get a hold of his barber, so he always saw that I had like a fresh cut. And I told him, "Oh, I cut my own hair." So he was like, "Hey, can you do me a favor? Could you line me up?" I was like, "Okay, no problem." Lined him up. Next thing you know, the following week, "Hey, could you line me up again?" Bam. Lined him up again. Next thing you know, I became his barber.
Right.
Then he introduced me to Lance Leggett.
Right.
And Lance Leggett's real picky about his hair, so he didn't let nobody touch his hair. So that's when I knew. I was like, you know what? I got a talent that I didn't realize I had.
Right. Because the way you got into basically cutting was through the tattoo stuff, or through you're an artist, right?
I'm an artist. I used to do graffiti.
Graffiti, that's it.
Yeah, but I had to change that negative.
Right.
to a positive.
But it's not like you grew up dreaming you were going to cut hair.
I never. My mom's a hairstylist, but I never knew that I would be cutting hair and become this popular at what I do in Miami.
So it starts with Javaris and Lance, and then it keeps growing, right?
And then Julian Gamble, he's still here. I've been here as long as he's been here.
Yeah.
So it's like we grew up together at the University of Miami.
Unbelievable story. And
then you started doing some guys from on the football team, Jacory's coming out with some cool dudes or cuts, a few years back, and some other guys. I
believe the term "cool do" is dated.
I'm sorry, cool cut. That's why I corrected myself.
No
cool
problem.
Cut. But who comes up with those ideas? That you find it's kind of a standard idea of doing it, but you had some pretty interesting designs. I guess talk about some of your favorites and who would come up with them. Was it you, or the guys would suggest stuff?
No, see, with Jacory, I knew him when he was at Miami Northwestern, and when he came to UM, it was like, oh, that's cool. Now we're going to get to kick it. We're going to get you some good haircuts. So as far as the design-wise, he would let me do anything in his head, as long as it was the time for game day. The Hurricanes would bring that swag, so he just let me do me. And eventually as far as with me doing graffiti, that eventually rolled into cutting hair, so it's kind of just an art that just stuck with me.
You have another day. You have a day job, working for the county.
Correct.
And I know there's been nights when back, you're in the dorms or wherever you're cutting these guys till way late because they're lining up. No sleep for the weary, right? You're on the clock a lot.
Yeah, that's the downfall of what I do. It's hard for me to get a lot of rest, and there'll be nights where I'll get home like at 2:30 in the morning, just been cutting since I got off work at 3:30 all the way to 2:30 in the morning. But eventually I had to, set my schedule because it would affect my way at work with the county, and I couldn't let that roll over into my full-time job because I need my job.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Steve Rivera, Canes Barber, at Canes Barber on Twitter, joining us here on AllCanesRadio. Okay, so you started out cutting the Canes, Javaris, Lance, Canes. When did you start breaking out? Because now you're cutting guys that are in the NFL, you're pros, you're cutting everybody. So when did
even Gators?
Yeah,
even Gators heads.
So tell us, when did it start branching out?
When the Florida Gators came down here for the national championship.
Right.
Which was. Who was it against? I completely forgot.
Was it the one against
Ohio State?
Oh, no, Oklahoma.
Or Oklahoma, was it? Yeah, it was Oklahoma against.
Was it Oklahoma? I don't know.
I don't know. Well,
it all blends together. I was there.
Well, actually, this young lady who I went to school with at high school, I went to Palmetto Senior High School here in Miami.
Right.
She actually was a mentor to the Florida athletes, and she gave Mike Pouncey my number, and Mike Pouncey hit me up. He said they were in town. They were staying at, I forgot.
Either the Fountain Blue or
the Fountain Blue. He hit me up. I went over there, met a lot of great people from Marquise Pouncey, Joe Hayden, Chris Rainey. There's a whole bunch of them. That class that came out, those are all first-round picks.
Right.
Yeah, and I still keep in touch with them, so it's like a blessing.
And a lot of these guys keep homes in South Florida, so when they come back in town, they call you, right?
Yeah. Where they train is here in Miami during the off season, so they're always in town. So yeah, it's like they never left.
So how far in advance does a guy need to book a cut with you, Steve? I mean, if a guy wants to get his hair cut on Friday, is it a week in advance? Just because you sound so busy and you got to drive to everybody's different locations.
Yeah, I usually have a set schedule with my clients, so they know what day that I'll be cutting their hair. But as far as if someone's coming into town, they'll have to call me a day in advance, and so I can set them right there.
Now, a lot of guys like to have that clean cut. So how often are you cutting an average client's hair? Is it at once every week? Or?
Yeah, I try to do it once every week just to keep them clean, especially UM players. I told them they got to keep their haircut clean. They got to be well presentable to the media, so I try to. Sometimes it's hard to deal with their schedule because they got practice, they got class, they got study hall. So I try to let them know once a week, probably every Wednesday, get your haircut. And I'm real consistent with get your haircut.
So a guy like Gerard over here, he would need a cut or two, right?
Gerard just need a lineup. He'll be good.
He's got some stuff going on. Who's the oddest client you've had? I mean, you get a lot of pro clients, a lot of famous people, whatever. Mm-hmm. Has there been just some 60-year-old white guy that's been like, hey, can you cut my hair? You do all the athletes.
Oh, trust me, I've ran across a bunch of them. They're big Hurricane fans, so they just like to get a haircut.
And what do you do with that?
Well,
you just get out the clippers, you little couple.
I pull them out, hook them up, get them going, make them feel back like he was younger before. So I mean, hey, whatever they want, I'll do it.
By the way, does it seem odd to you that I love the smell of the spray that you guys clean the clippers with?
No, that's everybody. That's everybody.
I love that stuff.
Everybody loves that spray.
Yeah, it's so good. Let me ask you this question. So you've done the pro athletes.
Correct.
Who would you think is the most famous guy, or not the most famous guy, the guy that when you were cutting his hair, you were most enamored with? You were like, I can't believe I'm cutting this guy's hair.
Honestly, just because I was a big fan of him growing up, and he played at USC. Unfortunately, it was USC, but Reggie Bush.
Reggie Bush.
Yep.
How'd that come about?
That came about one day. I was at the facility in Davie.
Dolphins, yeah.
Yeah, at the Dolphins, because Mike Pouncey.
Right.
He plays for them. So I was cutting his hair, and Reggie walked in the room. And I was like, oh man. Inside, I was like, I got the butterflies. I was like, oh man, that's Reggie Bush.
Right.
But I played it cool.
Right.
Then he came over to me, hey man, can you fix my lineup? My barber messed me up. That's the big question I always get.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, no problem. He came, sat down, gave him a lineup, and then he just.
Did he become a regular?
After that day, I got a call the next week. Hey, can you come up to my place? I need a haircut. I was like, sure. I flew right over there. Got hooked up.
You don't say no to Reggie Bush, do you?
No, I can't say no to Reggie.
Who's become your best client over the years? The guy that you've been cutting his hair the longest?
Honestly, one who's stayed loyal to me regardless of how many barbers he done ran into at clubs or just in the streets in general. Greg Cooper.
Greg Cooper.
Greg Cooper.
Former AllCanesRadio guest.
Yeah.
Former AllCanes.
Yeah. So So how long you gone back to him since his freshman year?
Yeah, since his freshman year. We always keep in touch. He actually resides here in Miami. I think he might be going to the CFL, the Canadian Football League, so hopefully that all works well with Greg Cooper and his family.
What about, you talk about you cut your own hair. Mm-hmm. What's harder, cutting someone else's hair or cutting your own head? I just can't imagine how you would even, you got to look in a mirror, or how does that work?
Cutting your own hair, it's difficult. Before I used to cut my own hair, but with me, my schedule, it's hard for me to take time out my day to cut my hair, so I'll go to a barber shop.
So you have your own barber?
Yeah, I have my own
so
barber.
how does that work? Because that's like a doctor going to another doctor.
Yeah.
It's like, I can only imagine that barber is like super nervous, like, man, if I miss this guy.
No, actually, the barber who cuts my hair is someone who I look up to.
Oh, okay. Because,
Yeah, he's actually the barber of the Marlins.
There you go. We talked about that, yeah. So let me ask you this question. I know for a while, you know, every now and then you pop into a barber shop down south and cut hair. Can the average guy that's listening to this interview find you anywhere?
Yeah, they can find me on Twitter @CanesBarber. Send me a DM, or on Instagram @CanesBarber as well, or email me @CanesBarber1986@gmail.com.
And so if I email you today, Stephen, I can maybe I can line you up, and you can line me up, as you call it, and get my hair cut.
Yeah,
right.
I can line you up, ain't no problem.
I think just once.
Oh, we're going to have to do it.
Just once, I think I'm going to grow my beard out and just have you, like, put a U in my beard just to say that I did, that I'm that guy, because I haven't had to, have a real haircut in 20 years.
I'll tell you one of the most impressive things, because I remember, when you'd go over to the dorms, a lot of guys would be posting pictures, and I'd look at them, on Twitter or whatever. One of the most impressive things that I noticed from your cuts is the fact that, like, the way you use the different lengths, it's almost like a guy's got, like, different color hair because of the shading. I mean, that's an art. I mean, how do you learn to do that? Is it just over practice? Does the graffiti part come into that?
Yeah, it's all with being artistic. I love art, and of course I used to do graffiti, and that all rolls into cutting hair. The different levels of clips that you use just to blend it in how they want it blended. It's all, I mean, like, it's a blessing. A lot of people, I'm not trying, barbers out here, they all have talent. We all have some type of, just a better talent than the next barber. Like myself, I honestly need work with as far as, like, the scissors, like with your hairstyle.
Right.
It'll be difficult for me to cut.
Well, yeah, you can experiment on my head. That's all right.
But I need to learn. So, I mean, it's a learning thing.
And the thing about cutting hair is, if you screw up, you can't stick the hair back or paint over so what do you do if you make a mistake?
If you make a mistake, basically every haircut is like an interview.
And you won't get called back.
Pass or fail. You'll know right then and there.
Do you remember one time that you may have made a mistake and you were able to cover it up or fix it in a way that it wasn't too bad?
Yeah, I made a mistake. They have this black spray. It's somewhat called like a Beijing.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up putting a little roach in someone's hair, so I had to spray that can, and it covered it right up. He didn't notice.
That's awesome. Steve Rivera, the Canes Barber, @CanesBarber on Twitter. Appreciate you taking the time, man, coming on out. Give the info again at @CanesBarber on Twitter. On Instagram is what?
Canes Barber. You can reach me on Instagram. That's usually where I post all my pictures of all the recent celebs and athletes that I cut.
Awesome, man. Thanks for keeping it true to you and everybody else. Doing a great job, man. You're one of the best in town, no doubt about it. Steve Rivera, Canes Barber, joining us here on All Canes Radio. Nate Brooks is in the house. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we will get Mr. Brooks on the airwaves. Back after this, you're listening to All Canes Radio, live from Shake Shack, 1450 South Dixie Highway in the Gables, right across from the U. Back after this on All Canes Radio.